Story 1. The woman who uses my apartment as her own. I used to think the creepiest part of living alone was the silence. But silence is nothing. It's a luxury, privilege. What's terrifying is realizing that the silence you live in isn't empty, it's shared. I didn't understand that at first. Not until the night I came back home and found my kitchen chair pulled out, just slightly, by no more than a hand's width. Something so small, so meaningless, that most people wouldn't even notice. But I notice everything, especially in my own apartment. The first sign. It was a Thursday night when I saw it. I had left for work in a rush that morning, grabbing my keys from the bowl and brushing past the table. The chair was tucked neatly under it, like always. I'm obsessive about small details. Symmetry, clean lines, order. When I returned, the first thing I saw upon entering was the chair. Pulled out. Not much. Not dramatically. Just enough for my brain to say, "This is wrong." I stood there for a full minute staring at it, trying to remember if maybe I had pulled it out. Maybe I sat for a moment. Maybe I shifted it with my leg. Memory is tricky. You can convince yourself of anything if you try hard enough. So that night I convinced myself it was nothing. But it wasn't. The hairbrush. 2 days later, something else was wrong. My hairbrush, usually on the counter near the sink, was on the windowsill. Right in the middle. Perfectly centered. The kind of thing someone would do if they were using it, and placed it down absent-mindedly. Except I hadn't used it that morning. Or the night before. I picked it up slowly, turning it in my hands. There were long strands in it. My hair isn't long. I stared at those strands the way people stare at storm clouds, knowing something is coming. Something inevitable, uncontrollable, devastating. But again, I convinced myself, maybe they're mine. Maybe I shed more than I thought. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe. But maybe stops working when the truth starts breathing down your neck. The smell of perfume. The third sign wasn't small. I unlocked my door after work, stepped inside, and froze immediately. Perfume. A soft, powdery smell. Not strong. Just enough to kiss the air. And it wasn't mine. The scent curled through the room like fingers. Something delicate yet deeply wrong. I walked slowly through the apartment, sniffing the air like an animal searching for a predator. The scent was strongest in the hallway. Then the bathroom. Then the bedroom. Felt like following a trail, or like arriving somewhere too late. I went to bed that night feeling watched, even though I checked every lock, every window, every inch of the apartment. But that's the thing about feeling watched. It's usually because you are. The video. The fourth sign wasn't subtle either. On Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected in your apartment. 2:14 a.m. My breath went cold. I opened the video. At first, I saw only darkness. Then the dim shape of my living room emerged in the infrared glow. The table. The couch. The chair. Then, movement. A shape. A figure. A woman walking slowly through the room. Barefoot. Hair long, tangled, messy. Wearing one of my shirts. Not just wearing it. Filling it like it belonged to her. Her face never turned toward the camera. She moved like she knew the apartment by memory, like she lived there. She walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, took a drink of water straight from the bottle, then wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She moved with the calm, casual ownership of someone in their own home. When the video ended, I sat frozen for a long time. Speechless. Motionless. A single thought circling in my skull. How long has she been here? Night audience. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the door, listening for anything. Breathing, footsteps, the brush of fabric. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. And that's when I felt it. The sensation of being watched while sleeping is unmistakable. It's primal. It digs into the back of your neck and pushes your eyes to open. I opened mine, and I saw a silhouette standing by the doorway. A woman. Her shadow stretched long across the floor. I could hear her breathing. Slow, raspy, patient. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I shut my eyes tight, pretending to still be asleep. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then I heard her walk away, bare feet against the floor. I didn't sleep again that night. She left something. The next evening, when I came home from work, something new awaited me on the table. Coffee mug. One I didn't own. Inside it, lipstick marks. Deep red. Still fresh. And a note. Written in small, careful handwriting. Stop pretending you don't know me. My hands shook so hard the note nearly slipped from my fingers. I didn't know her, but she knew me, knew my routine, my schedule, my habits, where I slept, where I showered, where I kept everything. She lived in my apartment like a ghost wearing skin. The wrong door. I called the police. They searched every corner of the apartment, every closet, every cabinet. Nothing. They told me I was likely experiencing a prank or misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, right? 3 days later, I found the hidden door. It wasn't really hidden, just unnoticed. A small rectangular panel in the hallway ceiling. I'd never given it a second glance. But there were fingerprints on it. Long, narrow ones. Smudged with dust. I got a chair, climbed up, and pushed the door open. A gust of cold air brushed down my face. The darkness above felt heavy, thick, alive. Inside the narrow crawlspace was a thin mattress, a blanket, a half-eaten apple, an empty water bottle, a small pile of clothes, my clothes, and carved into the wooden beam above the mattress. I live here too. The final visit. I didn't stay that night. I didn't pack anything. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, and walked out the door without looking back. But before I left, I checked the hallway one last time. The attic door was open slightly, a sliver, and from the darkness above, 2 pale fingers curled over the edge, slowly pulling the hatch closed. Not slamming it, not hiding, just closing it gently, like someone saying, "See you soon." Story 2. The woman who walks through my apartment when I'm not home. People always assume they'd notice if someone else lived in their home. They imagine footsteps, voices, missing food, doors left open. Something obvious. Something unmistakable. But the truth is simpler and far more terrifying. Someone can live in your home without ever leaving a trace. At least, not the kind you notice immediately. My realization started the day my neighbor stopped me in the hallway. I had just closed my apartment door behind me when she stepped out of hers. "Hey," she said casually. "Did your girlfriend move in?" I blinked. "My what?" She looked confused. "I just heard someone walking around your place for hours. Thought maybe you weren't alone anymore." I forced a smile. "I live alone." Her expression changed. She tried to laugh it off. Guess sound travels weird through these walls. But my stomach had already tightened. Because I hadn't been home all day. The footsteps. That night I sat on my couch replaying her words. Walking around your place for hours. Not a sound you accidentally hear. It's deliberate. Repeated. Consistent. I tried convincing myself it was pipes, or pets in nearby apartments, or whatever else reasonable people say when they're trying not to panic. But when I went to bed, I noticed something. My bedroom door was open. I never leave it open. Cannot sleep unless it's closed. I stood there staring, heartbeat rising. But I told myself, maybe I forgot. The human brain is built to protect you from the truth. Even when the truth is already standing behind you. The strange movement in the curtains. 3 days later I saw something unmistakable. I have long, heavy curtains by the living room windows. They don't move unless there's a draft. And my windows were locked shut as always. I was leaving for work, keys in hand, when I noticed the fabric sway. Just once. Just enough to look like someone had brushed past it. I walked over and touched the curtains. Still warm. As if they'd been touched moments earlier. I checked behind them. Nothing but the radiator. Still, I felt that pressure in my chest. The feeling of entering a room someone just left. A presence without a body. A shadow without shape. I left for work with a feeling crawling under my skin. I didn't know it then, but she was already watching me walk out. The phone charger. I always coil my charging cable into a tight loop on my nightstand. It's a habit. One evening when I came home, The cable was lying straight, fully extended, placed neatly across the pillow, like someone had been lying there, charging their phone while resting their head where mine should be. I felt my bones turn to ice. Someone wasn't just visiting my apartment. They were using it, living in it, moving through it like a second skin. I stood in my room for a long time, listening to the quiet, feeling the air, tasting the wrongness in it. But there was no one. Not anymore. The shower. 2 nights later, something finally broke the illusion of safety. I came home late. The apartment was dark, quiet, until I walked past the bathroom. The mirror was fogged. Moisture clung to the tiles. The air was warm and thick. Someone had showered only minutes before. I reached out and touched the mirror. Warm. A droplet slid down the glass. A fresh one. I backed out of the bathroom slowly, heart punching my ribs. I grabbed the heaviest thing near me, a metal table lamp, and stepped into the hallway. Hello! My voice cracked. Nothing. But the warm air pressed against me, clinging like fingers. I called the police again. Again they found nothing. Again they suggested I was stressed, hallucinating, misinterpreting. But the steam on the mirror wasn't a hallucination. The still warm tiles weren't misinterpretation. Someone had been in my bathroom, naked, showering, relaxing, like they lived here. The video left for me. It was only a matter of time before she wanted me to know. One morning my phone had a new video, saved, not recorded by me. I opened it. The screen flickered. Then the camera stabilized, showing my living room from a low angle. She was holding the phone. The woman. Her hair was long, dripping wet, fresh from the shower. She wore one of my shirts, the same blue one I'd been searching for all week. She walked around my living room, slow, casual, exploring it like a museum. She lifted framed photos, sat on the couch, touched objects. Then she leaned close to the phone. I finally saw her face, pale, calm, eyes too wide like she was fascinated by the lens. Her lips curled into a small smile as she whispered, "You leave such a peaceful silence behind." Then the video ended. I didn't move for almost 10 minutes. My hands had turned to stone around the phone. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wanted me to see her. The wrong notebook. I keep a notebook on my desk. Mostly scribbles, reminders, random thoughts. One evening, exhausted and terrified, I opened it. The first page was normal. The second too. On the third page my handwriting stopped. And new handwriting began. Not mine. Sharp. Slanted. Female. The entries were short. Observational. He wakes at 8:12. He takes coffee with 2 spoons of sugar. He checks the front door twice before leaving. Every page documented my habits, my movement, my behavior. Then at the bottom, he never notices me. That sentence carved itself into my bones. Because it wasn't a delusion, not paranoia. This wasn't something imagined in the dark. She had been here, writing, watching, and I didn't notice. The place she hid. It wasn't the attic this time, not the crawl space, not a closet or under the bed. It was the cabinet in the hallway. The one I always kept locked because the door was broken and I hated how it squeaked. That night, the door was open a few inches. I should have run, should have screamed, should have left the apartment forever. But I walked toward it, slowly, quietly. The cabinet was tall and deep, used to store winter coats and old blankets. I gripped the door edge and took a breath. Then I yanked it open. The smell hit me instantly. A soft, floral scent. Her scent. Inside was a blanket folded neatly, a small pillow, 2 empty water bottles, and a piece of paper taped to the wall inside. "Don't open when I'm sleeping." My legs gave out. I dropped to the floor, staring at the note. She had been living inside my home like a nocturnal animal, sleeping in my walls, using my things, watching me. The final encounter. The last night I spent there wasn't planned. I was packing my bag, grabbing essentials, ready to stay at a motel. I didn't care about the cost. I didn't care about leaving everything behind. But as I zipped the bag, the bedroom door closed softly behind me. I froze. A chill slid across my spine. Slowly, I turned. She was standing there, in the corner, barefoot, wearing another one of my shirts, this time the black one. Her hair messy, falling in front of her face. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just watched me. I felt something primal and ancient explode in my chest. Fear so raw it hollowed me out. I backed away slowly. Her eyes followed me with unnatural stillness. Then she smiled. Not wide, not crazed, just a small, satisfied smile. As if she'd been waiting for this moment. Watching me pack. Watching me prepare to leave. Then she whispered, "If you go, I'll have to find someone else." I could barely breathe. She tilted her head gently. "Don't make me start over." I didn't pack anything else. I didn't close the door. I just walked out. And when I glanced back down the hallway, she was standing in the doorway watching me leave. Her silhouette framed in my home. Her home. Story 3. The day I finally saw her leave, I used to think the worst part of living alone was the silence. You get used to it. Its weight, its thickness, the way it settles into the corners of the room like dust no one can clean. But now I know the truth. Silence isn't empty. It's sometimes the only thing left after someone else finishes moving. Started 3 months ago, the day I came home to find my TV on. Not just on, playing a documentary about deep-sea creatures. Program I would never choose. I thought maybe I'd left it running accidentally, but the little details didn't add up. The remote was on the couch cushion, neatly aligned with the edge. I'm not the neatly aligned type. Still, I brushed it off. Then the dishes started shifting. I would leave the plates stacked and come home to find the top one turned slightly, as if someone had checked underneath. Or my shampoo bottle moved a few centimeters from where I left it. Or the windows opened even though I kept them shut because it was winter. You tell yourself you're imagining things. Because the alternative, that someone else is in your home, is worse than a nightmare. But nightmares end. This didn't. The subtle breathing. I didn't actually hear breathing until week 4. I just opened the door after work, and as I stepped inside, the apartment felt disturbed. The air was warm, thick, almost lived in. Not the stale air you expect from a closed room. I remember dropping my keys, and the moment they hit the floor, I heard it, a soft exhale. From the bathroom, I stood frozen for maybe 30 seconds, my pulse thudding so violently that I could feel it in my teeth. Then I slowly backed out of the apartment, closed the door, and waited in the hallway. I pressed my ear to the door, and heard nothing. No footsteps, no door creaking, no window opening. Just my own fear pressing back at me through the wood. After 20 minutes, I went back inside. Bathroom empty. Window still locked. Nothing disturbed. But the humidity in the air hadn't been mine. The evidence I didn't want. I bought a motion sensor. Nothing fancy, just a cheap one you plug into the wall that lights up when something moves in front of it. That night, when I came home, the sensor wasn't blinking. But it had been rotated slightly, facing the wall. As if someone didn't want it to see them. That's when I bought cameras. 3 of them. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one facing the front door. Not hidden, mounted openly, obvious and blinking. The next day, I checked the footage. All 3 feeds went dark for 10 minutes between 2:41 p.m. and 2:51 p.m. Black. Silent. Like the cameras had died. Except the logs showed they were receiving power the whole time. They had been manually paused. By someone standing right in front of them. There was no denying it anymore. I wasn't imagining it. Someone was living in my apartment when I wasn't home. The woman on the screen. The breakthrough came accidentally. I was scrubbing through sped-up footage from an entire week, refusing to believe I'd find anything. When on Thursday at 3:12 p.m., the living room camera recorded something. A flicker. Just one frame. But in that single frame, half blurred because she was moving fast, I saw a woman. Long black hair, pale skin, wearing one of my shirts, walking across the living room. My stomach dropped so violently I nearly threw up on the keyboard. She'd been there, in my space, touching my things, wearing my clothes. The next frame showed nothing. She had moved out of view so quickly it was almost inhuman. I scrubbed backward and forward 100 times. Same result. One clear frame of a woman who didn't belong. My apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar. Like walls had shifted. Like every object had been slightly rearranged by hands I didn't know. That night I slept with the lights on. The police couldn't help. Of course I went to the police. I even printed the frame of the woman's face and brought the footage on a USB drive. They took it seriously at first. Forced entry, trespassing, maybe even a stalker. But then they searched my apartment. No hidden crawl spaces. No lofts. No basement access. No unlocked windows. No signs of forced entry anywhere. One officer asked if I took any medication or had a history of hallucinations. That was when I realized they weren't going to help me. When they left, the apartment felt even smaller. Like the walls were listening. She started leaving messages. They weren't written messages. They were arranged. The first one was on my bed. A set of keys I'd lost 2 years ago. I'd searched the entire apartment back then, tore the place apart looking for them. And here they were, resting on my pillow like she wanted to give me something sentimental. The next day, all my shoes were placed in a perfect circle on the living room floor. Another time, one kitchen cupboard was left open, just one, and inside, every item had been turned upside down. This wasn't a squatter. She wasn't stealing or hiding. She was communicating. And every message said the same thing. I live here too. The night everything changed. It happened on a Friday. I came home early from work, around 1:30 p.m. My apartment should have been empty. It wasn't. The moment I walked into the hallway, I heard something fall inside. Something small, like a spoon hitting tile. My stomach twisted so violently I almost collapsed. For a moment, pure instinct told me, she's still here. She didn't have time to hide. I stood in silence for almost a full minute, breathing so shallowly my chest barely moved. Then, slowly I heard footsteps. Not fast, not panicked. Slow, measured, deliberate. Walking from the kitchen toward the bedroom. I didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then I heard the soft sound of my wardrobe door closing. Not opening, closing. I don't know how I found the courage, but I walked forward. Every step felt like ice cracking under my feet. When I reached the bedroom, I turned my head toward the wardrobe. It was closed. Too closed. Perfectly aligned. Something I never did. I lifted my hand, fingers trembling so badly I could barely control them, and placed them on the doorknob. Cold. Not from the room. From the inside. Someone was touching the other side. I yanked my hand away, and the doorknob turned. On its own. Just a tiny movement. But enough. I ran. The day I finally saw her leave, I waited outside the apartment door, breathing like I'd run a marathon. My heart slamming against my ribs so hard it hurt. For 10 minutes, nothing. Then I heard it. The faintest creak of the wardrobe. Soft footsteps. Crossing the carpet. Walking toward the hallway. I pressed myself against the wall across from my door. Then, the door handle turned slowly from the inside. The door opened, and she stepped out. The same woman from the frame. Long hair. Pale skin. One of my shirts hanging loosely on her. I watched her walk out of my apartment as if she had every right in the world to be there. She didn't look at me, didn't speak, didn't hesitate. She walked down the hallway with calm, almost bored steps, turned the corner, and disappeared. I was too frozen to follow her. When I finally moved and looked around the corner, the hallway was empty, as if she had melted into the air. She's gone. But the apartment isn't empty. I changed the lock. Installed new cameras, got a new motion sensor. I even sleep with a chair against the door now. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the wardrobe creak. Not opening, just shifting, like someone is adjusting their position inside. I haven't opened it in weeks, and I don't think I ever will.